Hello. My name doesn't matter. I'm here to talk for other people. And I was driving to the gym one time, and on the news it said a 7-year-old girl died from COVID. So that didn't happen. There's no way that happened. So I did a public records request. I have 500,000 unredacted death certificates from Massachusetts. Every cause of death, every person, all their names, their parents' names, where they're from, medical examiner's office number, everything. So that little girl, it said on her death certificate, complications of coronavirus 19 viral infection. That's the only thing it says in part 1. But there's a VAERS record of a 7-year-old girl from Massachusetts, one of only 4. Now, the girl, Cassidy Baraka, who died from Groton, Massachusetts, she died on January 18th, 2022. The VAERS record is of a 7-year-old girl from Massachusetts injected on January 13th. The VAERS record says, first injection, injected in 5 minutes, vomited for 8 to 10 hours thereafter. So they waited, and they gave her another injection. Severe abdominal pain, 103-degree fever, didn't have a bowel movement for 3 days. She was dead in 4.5 days. It's all facts. It's sworn to under oath in federal court, District of Massachusetts. So they wrote COVID on the death certificate, but I think we know what really killed her. Brianna McCarthy was a high school teacher in Methuen, Massachusetts. She was 30 years old, and she died from a stroke. Now, the VAERS report on Brianna, and I know it's her VAERS report because I talked to the nurse who wrote the VAERS report, it said that she had gone to the ER twice. They sent her home with migraines. The third time, her family brought her because she didn't recognize her sister. Then she had a seizure. She was paralyzed in half her body. The MRI showed brain lesions. She was brain dead within a couple days, and the family pulled the plug 2 weeks later. That was in 21, a year before Cassidy. Diane Dubois was 62. She died 2 weeks before Brianna was injected. She had a stroke, intracranial hemorrhage in the setting of thrombocytopenia, 11 days after vaccination. That's what it says on the death certificate. But when the death certificate goes to the CDC, they use an automatic parser. The vaccine as a cause of death did not get coded. There are ICD-10 codes, so it's not there as a cause, even though it's the root cause. I'll tell you a little bit more about Brianna in a moment. But 5 weeks after Brianna, Eden McDonald was 17 years old. This is all Massachusetts. Eden was 20 miles away from Brianna. Her date of death is June 11th. There's a VAERS report for a girl who was injected on May 23rd. She reacted almost right away with a bad headache. She went to her primary care physician twice that week, and when her headache resolved, she got her second injection. She died of a cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, a hemorrhagic stroke. Her head tried to push her brain down through her neck. Horrendously painful. And the interesting thing about a CVST, cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, and that's what Eden died from at 17 years old. And Diane, 2 weeks before Brianna, from intracranial hemorrhage in the setting of thrombocytopenia, is that the brief report written by 6 doctors from Harvard Medical College, Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, it's called Fatal Post-COVID mRNA Vaccine-Associated Cerebral Ischemia. They're telling you in the title that the death of this girl was caused by the vaccine that caused a stroke. It's in the title. In fact, it's in every paragraph of that report. And one of the paragraphs states, but this isn't a CVST type of stroke, which is common. Well, they said there are several reports from these COVID-19 vaccines. So they know there are several reports of a CVST type of stroke. And that's what Eden died from 5 weeks later. And what's frequent, it says where thrombocytopenia is frequent. That's what Diane died from 2 weeks before Brianna. So the strokes that they say there are several reports and a number of reports, and it's frequent, it's 3 women in 3 months from Massachusetts who died from strokes. I don't want to leave out Amaya. She was only 12 years old. There's There's a friend in California who has a site, versaware.com. I told him, send me what you got from Massachusetts, because there's only so much time I have analyzing the databases. He sent me one in February 17th, the VAERS report came out of a girl who died in August. It took 6 months for the report to come out. The report is of a girl who died, excuse me, it doesn't say she died. Yes, it does. August 29th is when she died in the report. I looked it up in the death certificate database. Sure enough, the girl died, 17 years old. How do I know it's the same girl? Because both the VAERS report and the death certificate state cerebellar, tonsillar, and bilateral uncal herniation. It's the only time I've ever seen that, and I've seen thousands and thousands of death certificates. It's the same girl. She was injected on August 3rd, so in the same month. And that's more than a year. That's 15 months after the 3 women I just told you about. So that's 4 strokes in 4 women in Massachusetts. I have hundreds of these, but there's only 3 minutes. So the vaccine has killed a lot of people. In fact, from the data, I'll just close with this, and I can stand behind this, and I'll swear to it in federal court. I already have. More than 4,000 people in Massachusetts alone have died from the vaccine. If you guys know me, you know where I get that number from. Cardiac arrhythmia, cardiac arrest, pulmonary embolism, acute post-hemorrhagic anemia, thrombocytopenia, the list goes on. Thanks for your time.
I think it was, 2 years ago or three years ago? I don't know when the last time I spoke here was. I was standing at this very podium in this very room. I wrote my book. Yeah, Bonnie's holding up the book. So I wrote my book in 2 years ago, and I started selling it a year ago. And I'm going to talk about, in a minute, chapters 1 and 2. But a lot has happened since then. I'll bend over. Look like I'm teaching law school or something. People say, he's the data guy or whatever. It's not about data, it's about people. That's why I really like this event, because we have people here, and they tell their stories, but they're not stories, and they're not anecdotes. They're real life. They're injured for life. They've lost loved ones. It matters. And it's important to get the stories out there. So, before I get into the data, I'm going to say that since the last time I was here, people have commented online. It's over 100,000 views of various snippets from my last talk here. They said it looked like I was wearing a prison uniform. And Michelle, my friend, made fun of what I was wearing. So I brought the same shirt, and I'm going to wear it. All right, I love my rugby shirts. They're cotton, they feel good, but here's the difference between then and now. Let's just take pulmonary embolism deaths. There's another 300 people dead from the vaccines in Massachusetts alone since the last time I talked, and that means over 700 excess pulmonary embolism deaths from the vaccine in Massachusetts. And if anybody wants to challenge me from the government, will be happy to show them all the data. And I have the data. I have all the death records from Massachusetts from 2015 through 2024. It's over 500,000. I don't know, it's probably over 600,000 by now. It's one of the biggest studies ever done. And I can tell you the excess by cause of death. I can tell you what every individual medical examiner wrote, their prose, the words they use. And so Trevor's here. He's going to speak. We just talked a little bit before this. His wife died from a pulmonary embolism 6 weeks after the Moderna vaccine. But that's one of an extra 300 since the last time I wore this shirt and spoke here. Like, I feel like I'm a prisoner in my own head knowing all this stuff, and yet how do I get it out to the people? How do you get the people to know when the press generally doesn't cover anything like this? Why? Well, maybe because $47 billion in venture capital financing in pharmas in Massachusetts, 600 pharmaceutical ecosystem companies, 50 companies over $100 million a year in revenue in Massachusetts in pharma, 10 companies over $1 billion a year, Moderna's headquarters, Pfizer's divisional headquarters for mRNA is in here, Jay Auchincloss, my congressman, His father was Fauci's number 2. He walked in class for a number of years. His mother is Lori Glimcher. She's president and CEO of Dana-Farber Cancer Institutes. Also sits on the board of GlaxoSmithKline, and before that, Bristol-Myers Squibb. In 2021, who was the CDC director? Rochelle Walensky. She was on the board of Mass General Brigham right before having that job. Who instituted the vaccine mandates? Her, and they went over to CMS and got CMS, that's Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and they got them to lean on all the hospitals. We're going to withhold your money unless you mandate vaccines. And how much does Mass General Brigham take in? $4.1 billion a year from Medicare. That doesn't even count the $2 billion or $1.2 billion from Medicaid, $2.5 billion research and academic. What's that, BARDA, Biological Advanced Research and Development? But I said I was going to talk about people. I'm going to use the remaining time to do that. So, chapter 1 of my book is Cassidy. Cassidy Baraka was 7 years old. She died on January 18, 2022. That's a year after the other person I'm about to mention, a year later. So they knew what the vaccine does, and they pushed it anyway. They had a vaccine bus outside the school in Groton, Massachusetts, vaccinating all those little kids. So Cassidy reacted in 5 minutes, vomited for 8 to 10 hours. That was the first vaccine. Second vaccine, a few weeks later, she had terrible abdominal pain, 103-degree fever, didn't have bowel movement for days, and then died. A year before that, Breonna McCarthy was 30 years old. Her death record now says she died from the vaccine. 3 years after she died, and they said she died from COVID, not the vaccine. Under pressure from the books, from her father calling the state and saying, fix it, make it right. And on Cassidy's death record, they said she died of COVID too, not the vaccine. There's no mention of the vaccine. At least in Breonna's, they couldn't hide it. There's a paper, Fatal Post-COVID mRNA Vaccine-Associated Cerebral Ischemia from Nadia McMillan, 6 doctors from Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and Harvard Medical College. This is an absolute vaccine stroke death. Strokes are up very high. There's a lot of excess. And I hope people realize these are real people. Trevor's wife, and then the extra, I think since I was here, 3,000 excess since I was here, dead from the vaccine in Massachusetts. That's over 7,000 people from the vaccine. Thank you very much.